Welcome to another episode of Rational Discourse Weekly. It's Monday, March 18th, 2013. I'm William Garrison.
And I'm Michael Aune.
And it's a boy! So, we have a new pope.
It's a boy, everyone. Which, I mean, that's rare in the clergy, I hear. Oh, wait. No.
It's the other way.
It's the only thing.
Being that they've never...
It's the only thing in the clergy, or the only thing the clergy are in. Low-hanging fruit, people. We strive for excellence here at 37G. Anyway, so yeah, we've had how many weeks of frantic discussion about the retirement of the old pope, which obviously, as they reported on every single newscast, hadn't happened in 600 years, which is true, though that's effectively meaningless, because that guy sort of retired, though he was also a hermit to begin with. Then they threw him in Rome, and then like 4 months later he left, because he's a hermit. But in any case, it doesn't really set a precedence for the current curia, or...
Well, to be honest, it's hard for me to gauge the effectiveness of a pope, especially not being, like, if the public discussion of things like, you know, them disavowing or, you know, not allowing condoms or talking about abortion or gay marriage, like, if there's not some breakthrough or some major change in their stance, it's hard for me to really say, like, oh, this pope did a lot, you know.
Well, part of the problem, to be fair, is we're not judging him by any metaphysical accomplishments. So, okay, maybe the Pope, it turns out, by denying contraception, is actually incredibly successful. Maybe they're right. That's cool. I mean, we can grant that. But that's not an argument we can have now. We can only say, when I'm burning in a lake of fire, oh yeah, turns out that Pope guy was onto something.
Turns out the one thing that my God put as a non-negotiable, or not my God, just the God, I guess.
Yeah, weirdly enough, it was Vishnu, but still hated condoms.
Yeah.
And so Pope got in.
It was totally cool with gay marriage, with serial killers, with pedophilia.
He actually hated Catholics, but he hated condoms so much more.
Yeah.
That he got in there. So anyway, I mean, it's an interesting process. As someone who loves history, I find it fascinating from that perspective.
Yeah.
Because obviously this is a tradition that goes back hundreds and hundreds, and in some version, some form, thousands of years. And so that's cool. I like that. I like being in touch with history. The fact that apparently 1.2 billion people didn't know what to do with themselves because they didn't have a Holy Father, who's the semi-divine link on earth to heaven. That's a little strange to me. But fair enough. I mean, it is what it is on its merits. I think the timing annoyed me a little bit because things worldwide seem to really be coming to a head as far as the whole abuse scandal that's obviously been shaking up the church. Which I think...
So you think it would have been better if he would have stayed in office?
Well, no. What I think it is... You know, they try to ignore the politics whenever they're talking about the papal ascendancy or, you know, any of the motivations of... why the hell can I not remember? It's not John Paul II. What the hell was the last pope's name? I'm completely drawing a...
The one that just left?
Yeah.
Benedict
XVI, I think. Or 14th or 15th. That's sad, and I apologize for that.
I'm Googling it. That's why we sit in front of
Any other time, yes.
Benedict XVI.
16th, alright. So I knew his number, but not his name. That makes total sense there. Well, anyway.
And he was evidently Joseph Aloysius Ratzinger.
Yes.
I don't understand the naming thing. Again, it's probably because I'm not Catholic and
to be honest, I don't know why they adopt a new name. I think it's really just sort of a tradition.
Well, because like I was listening to NPR, and they were talking to Catholics who...
Real quick, Billy. We hate to interrupt your regularly scheduled programming, but here at NPR, we rely on member contributions. No, I will not do fundraising. We should do that in the middle of our podcast. Just here
for
at 37G.
NPR. Oh, okay. For us, okay.
Rational Discourse Weekly is brought to you weekly
by Bud Light Lime.
None of your contributions. I mean, we're happy you're here, but you don't give us money, and we haven't asked for it, so It's not really a contingent thing here.
As Michael and I have said before, we're doing this for fun. If we happen to make any sort of money in the long run, then awesome.
Hopefully it'll just be to make this actually better, and so you actually want to watch it more.
Upgrading equipment, you know.
Then you'll see us walking down the street one day and you'll high-five us, and we'll have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
But in any case.
So they were talking to Catholics about the decision, and evidently there's so much that goes into this. They were talking about the significance of his name choice. This new guy, Francis.
Well, it's because of, again,
they were like, he chose Francis, which means he's a pope of the people, that he cares about the lowly, he cares about the poor, and he, this and that, but he's also super conservative, so don't expect anything, anything about the church's stance on gay marriage, abortion, all of these religiously driven topics to change. And so I'm like, I haven't learned anything except that you're somehow made the connection that he cares about poor people because he chose the name Francis.
Well,
again,
it was
ignorance on my part.
St. Francis of Assisi, who was known, he basically was very much against the kind of excesses of the church at the time.
Okay.
And so he focused on caring for the poor, which is supposedly, at least nominally, one of the core focuses of the church. And so, he looked at the corruption in Rome and all that stuff and said don't need to be building massive cathedrals. We should be focusing on people who are lying destitute in the street and helping the sick and the needy, which admirable traits.
Yeah.
No argument for me on that. And apparently that's the lifestyle that he's been living in Argentina. He apparently declined to live in basically the palace that would be provided for him, or the mansion.
I did hear that. Yeah.
He's been known to ride the bus regularly. He doesn't drive around in the limousine or the cars that would be provided for him.
But this is interesting. Things because I heard the same interview. I wonder if those sort of behaviors will follow over. Will he ride the Pope Mobile? This glass covered. Is that a Pope mandate or
probably
a Pope date?
In some situations, he already right after he was named the Pope.
Okay.
He was provided a car to go back to the residences where all the cardinals have been staying.
Yeah.
He declined and rode the bus. Said, I don't need the car. I rode in on the bus. I'll ride out on the bus. When he was given his Sunday Mass, apparently he just wandered out into the crowds to greet people because there were a bunch of people there. And of course his security detail freaked out, but more than once he just started shaking hands with people. So I mean, don't get me wrong, as kind of the lesser of two evils, I want him to do well. I want him to be an example of a church that is effectively benign at worst, or positive for its humanitarian benefits at best.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, on the key issues, metaphysically or theologically, there's going to be no change. He is a conservative. He follows in the lines of John Paul and Benedict. So you're not going to see anything about women in the clergy. You're not going to see any changes on condoms or gay marriage rights or anything like that from this pope. They pretty much said, if you're looking for a liberal, this is not the guy.
Well, so, and I don't know if we should expect anything different from the Catholic Church, just because I almost feel like with the royalty in Britain, having a queen and a prince, and I almost feel like it's a stayover from the old world that almost doesn't serve a purpose. It may serve a purpose to those, in the case of the Pope, he may be important to you if you're a Catholic because he's the voice of God. And
well, I mean, the idea is that the Pope, first of all, this kind of connects to it. So apparently the idea of the Pope changing his name, at least a couple of websites have verified this, is that in the Bible, pretty much any time God gave someone a strict task, a special task in the Bible, their name was changed as a result. So
So was Noah's name something different before?
Well, not him, but
there are other examples.
Joshua, I think, changed his name, or you get it was Saul, and then he had his conversion on the road to Damascus, and he became Paul.
Okay.
And so it's a tradition in the Bible that if you are anointed to perform a task for God, basically,
then you can pronounce P's, and your name becomes Paul.
There you go. You get to Pope. It's Pope. There's lots of P's in Pope. That's fair. And so the idea is that the Pope is assuming the mantle of the semi-divine,
the holy mantle,
bridge, and basically, yeah. Little Magic reference for the kiddies out there.
Magic the Gathering.
All right. And so that's why the name changes. But in any case, that leads to the idea of like the Pope matters because there literally is kind of a divine nature that he assumes. And so people who subscribe to these beliefs feel that the church is effectively leaderless, and not just leaderless, but somehow disconnected from the divine a little bit. Because the mechanism is broken, you're missing the link. And so not that the people couldn't get along, but...
Well, and unless I'm missing something, the Catholic Church in general, because Protestant churches don't have this, the closest thing is
the biggest thing is that the Catholic Church subscribes to a version of magic, in a sense, and that's not supposed to be derogatory. I mean, there are, like, priests have powers that lay people do not, in a sense. I mean, that's why you're not supposed to touch the sacrament. And that's why the Pope, I mean not the Pope, the priests and stuff are the ones who handle the sacrament, they supposedly create it, they know the rites, they're the ones who baptize, things like this. There's the church itself, and the hierarchy and the structure has purpose. It's organized in a way that it is because of the roles that the people play. And those roles are ultimately grounded in the divinity of which the church is the bride. You know, the church is the bride of Christ, at least in their terminology. And so you miss that from Protestant churches, at least a large number.
Yeah, because I would say, you know, they still have preachers that are, I feel like that they're less of a divine link and more of, they position themselves as a link between the people of the church and the text of the church.
Well, it is that in the hierarchy, the higher up you go, the closer you are to God. And that's what Protestantism largely threw away, was the idea that the hierarchy doesn't matter. The Bible, that's why it's all about the personal relationship with Jesus. In a sense, the Catholic Church doesn't care. At least that's not metaphysically important.
What's important is you're going to church, you're going to confession, you're going through these processes that their priests are taking you through.
Yes, but also that's why the Catholic Church takes into account good works, along with faith. Like you need to believe, but you also get credit for doing good things for other people. The Protestants throw out the works idea. I think pretty much entirely. I don't know of any sect that still takes works into account, which is why some, like Calvinists, believe in predestination. It doesn't matter what you do in life. You're already doomed or you're saved before you're ever even born. And the only thing that can save you is your personal relationship with Christ.
That almost reminds me of the idea of original sin. It's like God put you here, like for the Calvinist example, God put us here to be atheists, so we would deny him and then go to hell because of it.
And the idea is that their grounding of justice is such that God dictates terms, because God is the creator, and as the creator, like most people interpret over their creation, I can do whatever I want with my creation. You really can't tell me otherwise. And the idea is that, in many ways, God can do whatever the hell he wants with you because you're his. He owns you in every sense of the word. Your entire existence is contingent on him. It's the same justification for why a parent should be able to like spank their child. Well, it's their kid. And in a weird way, we sort of accept that even today as far as parenting.
Yeah.
That it's very touchy to touch on someone's kids or the way that they're raising them. And
raising them, what they're telling them.
The ultimate example is you can't criticize God's raising of his children.
Yeah, we've talked, like, the parents and the kids, we've talked about child indoctrination before. Like, it's hard to criticize someone on... I don't even think you can have this debate with most parents, like whether or not they should teach their kids their religion. Because if we took the logical stance, well, you should make the kids make up their own minds when they are of an age to do so.
Educate them, but, I mean, that's how I was raised. In many ways, my mom, primarily my mother, but she was raised Catholic. She definitely lapsed by that point, as was my father. And she would, I mean, I knew the story of Jesus and Christmas and Easter, and I'm not saying we sat down and read the Bible, but I was aware of these concepts. But I also was deeply engrossed by Greek mythology or Norse mythology or, you know, Egyptian mythology.
They were treated similarly.
No, yes and no. Obviously, I knew there was something different about Christianity, just because that was still active. But at the same time, my mom never once took an authoritarian position of knowing that this was the case. She goes, this is what many people believe. This is what I was raised. You know, I don't know how I feel about it, but here's the story, and sort of left it up to me. She never gave me a yes or no answer if it's true. And in the end, I came to the conclusion that it's not. And I'm sure many people would see that as a failing of my mother. And I completely am grateful to her for not... I didn't have to throw off anything in order to come to what I believe is some version of the truth. I was able to survey the field for what it was and realize that, you know, these don't make sense, but that option right there seems to be the best one.
Well, and I think it's funny, this segue that I'm about to mention, it kind of reminds me, there was a recent Republican senator, I think, who just changed his mind on gay marriage because he found out his son was gay.
Yeah, a Republican from Arkansas.
What it reminds me of is, for most Christian parents, I think if you would ask them whether or not, you know, they should, quote, force religion on their kids, whether or not they should raise them with the assumption that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, that that God
Which is a pretty heavy topic to throw on like a 5-year-old.
Is the one and only God. If you're not good, you're going to go to hell. Stay away from gays; they're an abomination. You know, you have to get married before having sex. Like this long list of rules to a child, and then they grow up thinking that that's the one and only truth. When
unwarranted absolutism is scary. By the way, it was Senator Rob Portman.
Senator Rob Portman.
Yes, who, Ohio.
Completely changed his stance.
Yeah.
The reason why it reminds me of him and how people seem to change their views when they're put in a situation that challenges that view is most parents wouldn't be okay with letting their kids decide for themselves when it comes to religion, especially if they are very religious themselves.
Well, you feel,
but let's say
fair, they think it's like that to them would be child abuse. Like you're not saving your own child. So I mean, I believe the impetus is genuine. I believe people are concerned and feel that they were doing the right thing.
Well, the flip side is, let's say they had to put up their kid for adoption.
Yeah.
And let's say they're a Christian family, and it's for money reasons, they're homeless, something like that.
Yeah.
But they ended up getting adopted into a Muslim family.
Well, there have been families who have refused adoptions because the parents don't share religious beliefs.
And then now they're being raised. Then I think their stance would change. It would either change to let the kids decide for themselves, or even though they're in a Muslim family, they should be raised as Christian because I'm Christian. So I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't...
Well, to be fair, those really are the only two options. They either have to change or not. But
well, no. The other option would be like, all right, I understand you're Muslim, but don't force it on my kid.
So you're saying it would basically force acceptance,
right?
Of
like using logic and allowing the kid to develop their own beliefs.
You're hoping your kid is going to come to the conclusion,
right?
That
there is one and only Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I mean.
But it's the human, it's how the human brain works sometimes, like, you know, understanding differences, like differences of religion.
And it's part of this is just the psychological tendency for people to be able to absolutely deny something or be against something or say that they're 100% committed to a position until it strikes home. It's why defense attorneys will take a ton of time to try and humanize the defendant, the person who's on trial for a brutal murder. That's why they go into backstories about childhood, about mental instability, about abuse. Any of these things that can humanize and make you sympathize with someone makes it that much harder to be absolute in your conviction for or against them. And so
what you're saying is it's easy to hate an idea. It's a little bit harder to hate a person.
It's a lot harder to hate people. And so, of course, like, we can be, let's say that we were just, like, vehemently anti-Catholic. Or at least borderline. I mean, it doesn't really matter. But then we meet the Pope, and he's a totally awesome guy. Which he seems to be, like, I assume if I met him, he'd be incredibly kind and loving, and he would say nothing but nice things to me and bless me. It'd be hard to walk away from that still thinking this guy's an asshole, because I just had this positive experience with him. But it need not be positive is my point. It need only be something as simple as your son comes out to you and you've had a public opposition to the lifestyle he now claims that he holds.
Right.
And now, how do you deal with this? You know that he's a good person. You know that he's your child, you love him with all your heart. How do you now put that love on the same page as this belief that you supposedly held very dear. And the problem is, you know, I would assume at some part of you knows that, God, I just can't. I can't not love him.
I'm not going to lose him over a position that I don't even know if I feel that strongly about.
And so those human connections override the theological ones, you know, those core beliefs. And I think that that's important. And in many ways, I think
that might be what long term, you know, leads to the slow eventual death of religion for some people.
Well, I mean, obviously, at least in the West. Now we're talking about West versus East. That's different because who knows where that's going to be in 50 years. But there is a tendency to be more and more accepting. It's hard to be a bigot. Didn't used to be, at least not the same way. You could be as racist as hell.
Racist,
no
sexist.
one really even cared. Even the people who you were racist against didn't even like bat an eye. It was just so ingrained. And now, no, you have a really hard time, even with friends, like letting that side out, which is good. I think that's the way it should be. I think that's the humanist sort of attitude of being accepting and understanding of your fellow man, which is ultimately what I think we all hope the world moves towards.
Yeah.
And I think part of what will happen, to kind of, I guess, finish this off, is that the humanist mentality, and hopefully a skeptical mentality, which I think they sort of go hand in hand, you can't make those absolute judgments because you're more and more understanding of the people who are not absolute in any way. People aren't black and white.
Only the Sith. Only the Sith deal in absolutes.
Only the Sith. That's actually a really brilliant line. But
I've seen that a lot on Reddit recently.
They
were I think they had a picture of the previous pope, and he was just saying something, and they try to make a lot of distinctions between.
Yeah. Well, absolutist thought I think is terrifying. Anyone who says they know the truth, 100%. First of all, I think is completely full of shit.
Yeah, how could
founded
one human humans are full of.
It's because when God tells you, God is not bound by our weaknesses and gray scaling, as we are chock full of. But I think long term, as religion, which deals in absolutes, or at least is prone to, it's going to become harder to swallow. I hope that's the case, because again, I'm not trying to rip religion away from anyone. I've said it, I sort of just want to make it increasingly intellectually uncomfortable to hold that position. Where there's so much that doesn't just jive with this belief system I'm trying to hold on to. And the body of evidence is only getting bigger. You know, your personal experiences with people, scientific evidence about the world, all of these things are conflicting with this archaic belief system. And eventually you're going to jettison the small belief system, and hopefully that giant body of experience that you have left is enough to give you a fulfilling worldview that you can then move on with.
Well, and talking about that gap between science and religion, we've touched on it in the past, but I think it's intellectually dishonest if you think that religion and science mesh well, at least especially with the established religions with books of the Bible. And
well, okay, so that's a whole nother topic we should touch on, but that's all a matter of interpretation. But the problem of interpretation, I think I'm actually going to write an article on it this week, because Stephen and I were talking about it, and I think it's a good topic. The problem of interpretation is that while it lets you get around these overt contradictions, oh, the earth didn't stand still and the sun stood in the sky for a full 24 hours. That's great. But now, once you take away a sort of obvious meaning, you're now opening it up to so many levels of interpretation or different interpretations that how do you even find meaning? There's basically an infinite number of ways to come at a text. So,
well, and also,
how can any of you claim to have
who guides the interpretation? And
yeah,
I know people in the past have tried to interpret how the different stories of the Bible line up, like how the what's the first book in the Bible? Genesis.
Well, Old Testament, yes.
Well,
I assume you're talking about.
Yeah. How Genesis is, is not literally true, and or things like that.
Well, there are literary aspects about how
you can do that based on the time period it was written, or how the author wrote other things, or whatever.
Well, the idea is that with
Genesis,
still, like on the first page, there seem to be two creation stories, or accounts of creation that don't quite match,
right,
and seem to be written by different authors within the first page of the Bible,
right.
And so that's very interesting, like different literary styles, but you already page one, you're off to a bad start.
Yeah.
As far as a coherent book of truth. And so now you got to start interpreting things, and interpretation is, well, especially if you're Protestant, anyone's game. Now, someone can claim that you're wrong, but it's all a matter of interpretation, so where do you go from there?
That's why you have so many different types of churches and so many different beliefs of thought, you know.
Yeah.
There are people that completely believe with the theories of evolution and the age of our Earth, and then there's people that literally believe our Earth is 6,000 to 10,000 years old, and believe that dinosaurs walked among men, and
no, Jesus rode dinosaurs. Yeehaw, motherfucker.
Or raptor Jesus. I've seen pictures, so it must be true.
That's true. Anyway, I guess that's a good spot to stop for today. We seem to... I know we took a break, and we're very sorry to our, I don't know, 4 followers. Do we have subscribers to this yet? If so, we're very sorry for like the 2-week hiatus. We should be back to a regular weekly schedule. We should have
this is
content.
This is our new studio, more or less. It's I moved, so we're gonna be trying to
new backdrop soon
of some kind. The old logo, maybe with a frame, maybe a new logo. We're not 100% certain yet, but if you have any recommendations, let us know. We have some new lighting. It's not final. We're gonna get some more. So
we're gonna try and deal with the shadows a little bit. Also, we're, I think, trying to adopt a new schedule. I think we're trying to aim for Monday podcasts and then Wednesday articles. That's been what we've sort of naturally gravitated to. So if you do keep an eye on things, hopefully our pacing will stay on around that, but we'll try and, you know, let you know if that changes substantially going forward. And as always, please feel free to comment, contact us. We love actually hearing from people. And hopefully we'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching. This is a test.
That wasn't weird at all.
Right. It's a wrap.
Rap. We don't rap. Do I have to rap now? I don't know if I'm good at rapping.
Ugh.